Hi, I'm Corey. Welcome to Creating with Scraps. This video is going to be the requested walkthrough of the Wildflowers book that I just created. I shared a bit of it on a previous video and I had been asked to show the completed version, so it's done. And at the end, I'm going to show how and this is not really a tutorial, it's kind of more like a show and tell, how I used some file folders inspired by Tracy Fox, who's got File Folder Friday going on, but I used some file folders to create this cover. And I'll show you the basic concept of how I did that. Again, not really a tutorial, but more of a how-to or a general guideline. All right, so here is the Wildflowers book. And I got the idea because I was gifted this really cool Wildflowers from the UK book, a vintage book, and there were a whole bunch of yellow flowers in here. And I thought, well, why not do a yellow wildflower book? So I did. In the front, there is a pocket right here, though I don't have anything in there yet. It is going to have a letter from the bookmaker. Jibid Neri has a fabulous letter from the bookmaker, and that is what's going to go in this front pocket. The cover, the things used here are the file folders, the Wildflowers book pages, some just linen stationery that I used for the journaling plate pieces, and then most of the patterns that you see are from the Tim Holtz, not bookmarks, that's not the right word, backboards, Tim Holtz backboards. When I was looking through for some green paper, I found those and I really liked the way they worked. So those are the products that are used in this particular book. And again, the cover is a file folder, and I'll show you real quick at the end how I did that. So here, no more talking, I'll just show you. This is a daffodil that I had preserved last year, and I'm going to eventually make one of my books that I'm going to make is a daffodil book because daffodils are my favorite flower. And I had saved them. I intended to do it last year, but I'm going to do them this year. So I just put a daffodil on the cover of this. And this is an idea that I've seen before in the scrapbooking world, but I saw it most recently from Nijeza Creates. Oh, and I used the inside, I don't know if you can see here, I used the inside cover of the book to line these papers, to line this paper, because I thought it made a fun writing spot. So there's that. And again, I just saw something that Nijeza Creates did. I think her name is Jez. And it reminded me of something we did a long time ago in the scrapbooking world. Right, and then these are just the pages. Any place that it didn't have a yellow flower, I took a page with a yellow flower and cut it out and put it on top. Excuse me. And then just a variety of the yellow wildflowers. And the pages in this are the book pages from the book itself, as well as leftover file folders. And I'll show you at the end how I did that. This is another transparency with some, I think that's baby's breath. I just had some dried baby's breath, so I stapled that on there. And here's just a little booklet using Gail made these inspired by Tina, and it's on a previous video that I did how I used a version to make them completely flat. And so when I knew I was going to be making this book, I made some of these to work with the colors, basically. And it was a lot of fun, and it turned out that it worked pretty well for this project. All right, all of these pages have some place to write. Like here is just a little matchbook notebook, and there's a whole bunch of paper. And somebody had said, are you sure it's going to be full enough? Because the original, before I was done, it was looking a little anemic, but this is me, so it is plenty chubby. All right, and then here's another, just a little fold open over notebook, so plenty of places to write. And there's just a tiny little, I punched a tiny little bit of the yellow wildflowers and put it in this charm as a tag. And then another version of a place to write, just a trifold. The back of this paper was a completely different color, so I just lined it with some writing paper and ran it through my laminator to make sure that it stayed in place. And more of the pages, and I kept the title of the type of a wildflower. It was up top high, and I just kept it and put it over the flowers themselves, and I kept the words, so explaining what a needlewin is that's this piece. And let's see, maybe I should move over a bit. And I thought that primrose was really pretty. I started with the daffodil because, you know, daffodils are my favorite. But this whole book is full of yellow wildflowers. Where was I? Well, heck, I did those. It was primrose. I was on primrose. Oh, there we go. Okay. And here, again, I just used leftover file folder bits to make my inserts. And I built up on the inserts. And again, just another little booklet. I used some of that faux yellow cellophane tape in here just because I liked the color. I thought it added kind of something fun to it. And then that transparency using tracing paper, tracing paper that we created is used throughout just to create embellishments and elements and such. And that's just a little notebook, a little flip over the pocket type notebook. Now this is not a removable tag, though it looks like it's anchored to the little base in the page. And oh, last time I showed this, there was no paper in the book, but there is actually paper now. So, and here, this was a ruffle made with that. And I just put a fold over note card place to write in it. Okay, and more of the flowers, yarrow and marsh marigold, tall melilot, I'm not quite sure. I'm not nearly as knowledgeable about flowers as I should be, or would like to be. Hawkweed. Here is again that tracing paper that turned into a pocket, and there are some vintage vocabulary cards tucked in that pocket. And then the back, there's that masterboard that I made with, that I shared last video. I cut it all up into pieces, and like this is just a little bookmark. So I used almost everything. I'll show you what I have left, but if you watched the previous video and you saw what I started with, you'll see what I have left. I used almost everything. And then this was a scrap cluster that I made, and here again is the paper that we created last time onto a tag, and then it's backed with cardstock so that it's plenty thick to write on. And this was, I had this die from Tim Holtz that I wanted to use for a while, and I thought, how can I really show this off? And I remembered a card making technique, because a long time ago when I was a scrapbooker, I was also a card maker, and I still make cards, but that's not my primary thing. But some of the techniques have remained, and this is kind of like there's a notepad underneath, so it's several pages, and then this acts as a little pop-up so that you can see the die-cut flowers. Now, if the recipient, whoever ends up purchasing this, chooses to, they can cut this off and use these as decorations, or they can just leave it like that. And it's also a tuck spot, and then there's another journaling card in the back in that tuck spot. And more wildflowers left over from last year. Sorry about the... And this is just strips of this, well, here you go. The tracing paper, there were just a little bits and pieces left, and so I cut it up into little itty bitty bits and pieces and sewed it on the edge where this made a pocket. And so that was kind of fun. And so that when you open it, there is a pocket here for a tag, and this is just a bookmark type journaling tag with a notepad. And I didn't put paper on it because there was a little notepad here. And then to make it show that it was a pocket, I put a scrap of that paper up top so you can see it was a pocket. And then that's just a decoration because I thought it was kind of fun. And then yellow toadflax, ragwort, bristly oxtongue. You know it's not American flowers or U.S. flowers, I suppose. A Welsh poppy, and I thought that was really pretty too. And here is, again, that created paper that we made, the created tracing paper, but I used the positive space of a die cut and then just kind of layered it to make a pocket, and used a bit of that scrap to make the top of a notepad. So there's, you know, several pages on here, more writing space. And then this is just a little flip over notepad with a scrap of the paper, and it's just a little notepad notebook. And this, so when you're putting it in and out of the pocket, this helps keep it closed. A little pocket on this side there. And then this side is another journaling card or journaling notepad. This one's got paper again. So there's plenty of space to write in this journal. I like to give people options. You could also include memorabilia, though it is plenty thick, so we might want to go light on that. And then this, in this file folder pocket that was punched from File folder pocket was punched from that paper that we made. And then I just put a little itty bitty notepad in there just because I could, and it was cute. It's kind of fun. Here is just a journaling card tucked into a cluster with a fussy cut piece of the flower. One of the flowers from the pages, fussy cut that. And then here is just a glassine bag with some of the pieces. Some, I had a little bit of leftover, and so I cut that with a die cut. No, not die cut. Punches, and put them in there so the recipient can use them elsewhere if they choose to. And that is a corn chamomile, and I thought that was really pretty. It's got a yellow center, so that was close enough to yellow for me. And then charlock. I don't know if it's furs or furzy, but it's kind of cool. Yellow pea. Cowslip. And then another insert, and this is a belly band with a big piece of that paper that we made. And then you flip it over, and there's a pocket on this side with another notebook. And this one is one of those. Well, maybe it is. What did I do? Oh, I just didn't open it. It's just an accordion style, notebook page. And so I sewed that in. I sewed this piece on the edge just to give it a little bit of interest, and then I covered it with some washi and some sparkle washi. And that's in the pocket here in the back. And I don't remember if I mentioned, this is just a journaling card and tucked in that belly band. And that's part of a pocket, and then this piece goes in here in that pocket. And then this, I'll have to come back to this, but this is just a little ephemera bit tag to hang off the side. And then we made an envelope, a little itty bitty envelope with that paper also. So perforated St. John's wort, hop trefoil, lesser celandine, I'm not sure. Oxeye daisy, I thought that one was a really cute one. And then in the back is a layered pockets thing, and I've been wanting to do this for a while, and this is another one of those scrapbooking things that we made in our scrapbooks, and then I saw it again recently, and I don't remember where I saw it, so I apologize, but it's something that's been around for a while. And so you lift up, each of these is attached. I use Velcro. A lot of times people would use magnets. So I've got a pocket right here. I haven't tucked anything in it because this is getting so chubby, but there's a pocket right here, and then you lift it up, and then there's a pocket right there, or envelope pocket, I should say. Then you lift it up, and number 3, and then you lift it up again, and it's number 4. So there's 4 little fun tuck spots right there in a neat stack. And then in the back, this back pocket here, what I did was I took a couple of pages, like treacle mustard. Well, mustard's yellow, so it got to live in here, and this shepherd's purse has a little bit of yellow in there. So I just tucked a couple of the pages from the book itself. Oh, and see here, there's little yellow centers on the bladder campion. I just tucked them in this pocket that I had created in the back. And so there is, I've been trying to do a mini a month, and I had counted earlier this month the tag book that I made as my mini, even though it wasn't really a journal. So I am going to call this one my mini this month, and it's the Yellow Wildflowers book. So there you go. All right, now I'm going to move this to the side and show you a couple things. Now, I was stuck on what to do for this insert. I struggled probably for a couple days after school. I was just like, what am I going to do? What am I going to do? So I thought, well, why not go to your own journals? I use them as idea books, and I went to this previous idea book that I'd made. Sorry, I got it all stuck. I had it tagged for you, and then I moved it. Oh, here it is. I used the glassine pocket on the side of a cluster. So I took something that I had intended to use this as a reference, and I finally did use it as a reference. So I felt pretty good about that. I reminded myself to use the materials that I have. And here I didn't have enough of, I'd had this really fun one, but I didn't have much in this color family, and I wanted to put at least one more. So what I did is I copied myself. I had made these a while ago as just as little embellishment cluster pieces. And so I just copied myself, and I made another one using the wildflowers. And it was kind of fun and a great reminder to use what I've got. All right, these little clusters, because I imagine somebody will ask. They're super easy, the dangly clusters. There is this Fiskars punch, but you don't even need a Fiskars punch. I just punched the book page with it, and then I punched one of the little itty bitty flowers with a square punch and put it on top. And then these, I had a whole bunch of these that were gifted to me, and they're really thick, which is fine sometimes. But what I did was I made a bunch of them. I opened this up, and I had a knife with me, which is, okay, that's not going to work. We'll just grab the Pampered Chef knife that I use. And of course, because I'm on camera, it's not cooperating. Okay, wow, this one really doesn't want to work. That one's glued well. Let's see if I can make this one cooperate. I didn't have any problems with any of the others, but now, of course, I am. There we go. When you tear this open, and it's usually really not so hard, I promise. When you tear this open, you get this little bit. See, you get this little piece. And then I just put the punched tag right on top of it. I punched a hole, punched the piece right on top of it, added an eyelet and a bulb pin and a fun little embellishment. So there's that. Again, normally it goes a little bit more smoothly. All right, there is it. This is all that I had left from the pieces. So these are the scraps that are left, and I'll use these to make some clusters because I like clusters. And then these are the two pieces I had left from that big master board I made. And I didn't use this simply because I didn't like the way the tracing paper looked on black. It kind of lost its prettiness or the effect. And so that's it. That's all I've got left out of those. And so I'll use those scraps up for something else. All right, the file folder. And the way I did this is I initially used one file folder, and then I decided I needed my pages a little bit wider to have room for this envelope stack. So here was my method. I wanted it to be a 6-inch tall, just because I love that size for a mini. So I took my file folder, and I don't remember which side I used. I don't think it really matters. And I cut it. I cut not with the fold, but against the fold. I just cut off a piece. Let me zoom out just a little bit, so might make it easier to see. All right, sorry about that. I just cut off one piece. And then my spine on that one is 1.5 inches. So I measured here. And this is just shy of 12 inches, about 11 3/4 inches, which is, neither here nor there. So the middle of 11 3/4 is about 5 3/4-ish. Again, it doesn't have to be perfect. So about 5 3/4. And so I'm going to do 5.5. Shoot, and I didn't get a long enough. Well, heck. All right, let's cut this to 6 inches. And I'm not remaking this video, so I apologize for the fumbles. I wanted the height 6 inches, so I'm going to cut it down. And I'm going to save this because this is one of the inserts that I used. This is one of the pieces that I used to build on. All right, now it should fit on my scoreboard. So if I do 1.5 inches and if I do it at 5 3/4 and 5 3/4, it's not going to fit. So I am going to do it. 5 and 5 is 10. What did I say this was? 11 3/4? Yeah, that'll work. Okay, so I'm going to do it. I'm going to score it at 5 and then at 6.5 because I wanted 1.5 inches spine. All right. And you're going to see that my sides aren't even and that I don't have enough depth to get the effect that I wanted. Right? Well, my sides are pretty close to even. They weren't supposed to be, but they're, I don't have the width that I need. So what I did is I started with this because I didn't know I was going to do my stacked envelope, and it's not perfect. You can see it's off a little bit here, but that's not going to matter in the end. So I used my remnants of the file and I, folded it over and cut it in half and cut it and da-da-da. And that's how I made all the black insert pieces. So I chose just random pieces, folded, cut, and sewed them in. And the way I sewed them in is my 1.5 inch spine. I used my ruler and I drew lines down my 1.5 inch spine at 1/4 inch. So I drew it. I lined these up right here, and I'll zoom in so you can see. I lined these up, and then I took my ruler and I marked it at you know what? Rather than just saying it, I'll just do it. I taped it so that it was perfectly straight. But for the sake of speed and ease, I'm not going to. So I lined this crease up on this mark and the first crease up on this mark. So I'm just at a 1/4 inch past on both sides. And now I used my pencil, and you can use your friction pen, but it didn't show at the end, so I didn't care so much. I used my pencil and I made 5. I think it's 5. I hope it's 5. Because I had 5 inserts. All right, here we go, and I'll show you. I made 5 lines, and that is where I took these pieces just randomly to my sewing machine and I sewed them up. I matched the crease in the fold to the line, and I put 5 random inserts, different sizes. I just cut this up to different pieces and different sizes, and that's the reason I'm not going to show you, because I didn't even measure. I just I think I'll cut it here, and So some are wide, and some are narrow, and some are tall, and some are short. They're just kind of all random because I knew I was going to use them as a base to build on. So I've got all of my various pieces sewn into my spine. I use them as sewing machine, but again, you can always use a 3 or a 5 hole pamphlet stitch, whatever. So I use this as a guide, sewed it, okay? And I did that with all of the pieces. Before I built anything, so I've got those sewn in, I took these pages because I had taken them out at the ones that had the mostly yellow flowers, and I sewed them between these. I didn't make any marks. So here we go. Let's do this. All right, so that is sewn in and that is sewn in. Okay, so I've got whatever random piece sewn in right here, and that's my base that I'm going to build off of. And then right next to it on the next line over, I've got my random piece sewn in. Just like a regular signature, right? And then before I did any decorating, I took these pages, the ones that had the color, the yellow flowers, and I put them right between the lines. So where I've got the pencil marks on here is where I sewed in my black file folder inserts, basically. And then between each one of those, because this is so thin and so narrow, I just laid it down in between. And I went with I taped it, of course, I used clips and tape. And so right between each of the inserts, I sewed them in. So each of the pages, I think I even have one in the front, and then so I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I've got 6 of these little inserts. I went right between the lines. And that is how I created the base. Now, once I had everything sewn in, before I did anything else, I knew I needed my book to be a little bit wider, because I had decided that I was going to use some of those papers to make this envelope stack. And all I did to make these envelopes is I went down. This is a 6, a 5.5, a 5, and a 4.5. No, I think I went down 3/4 of an inch. So this would be a 6, a 5 1/4, a 4.5, and a 3 3/4. So I went down 3/4 of an inch for each of the envelopes. I used my envelope scoreboard, made a 6-inch square, made an envelope. 5 1/4 inch square, made an envelope. 4.5 inch square, made an envelope. And 3 3/4 square, made an envelope. And I needed more width. I needed my page to be a little wider to make it fit. So what I did was, remember, we're pretending I've got all of my flower pages and all of my inserts sewn in. I took a second file folder, so I ended up using 2 file folders. And I cut it at just exactly the way it's folded, right? It's folded in half. And I cut 2 of those at 6 inches tall. So 6, yeah. I did 6 inches. And, well, you know what? I must have folded it. No, I only used 2. Oh, that's right, I did, because one of them isn't as tall as the other. That's right. And with these pieces, I cut down some of the width, but I was able to, oh, here, this one doesn't have the pieces. I was able to come in like this, and so I've got my pages, I've got my inserts, right? This is my cover, there everything is sewn in, so sewing right here. And then I took these pieces, the file that I had just cut, and I came in and did this so that I just cut it to whatever width I needed. And that is how I just made a sandwich basically. And I wrapped it, like if this was my lunch meat, I wrapped this piece right around it. And then I just cut it to whatever depth I wanted it to be to fit the envelopes on the back page. And that was all I did. See, I hadn't glued these envelopes in place yet. So these envelopes are glued onto the insert that I put over the top. And you can see here, I used a piece from the top where you can see that cutout. And I did that with both of them. I just made myself a little sandwich. And you could even tear it if you wanted to. It doesn't have to be straight. But there's my inside page, my cover page, and how I was able to get my depth. And then I just kind of glued them together at the top of the bottom. And then here is my place, is my little tuck spot, right? And I did the same thing on both sides. Before I put these pieces in, before I glued them down, I took a scrap of paper and just cut it 1/8 of an inch smaller than 6. So 5 7/8, right? Cut it 1/8 of an inch smaller and glued it over the top. So here is my base. This is where my signatures are sewn in and where my pages are sewn in. I cut it, you know, I had it overlap, I don't know, 1/2 inch or so on each side, 3/4 of an inch. And I just put it right over the top, and that hid all of my stitching. Then I sandwiched this piece on top, and there is my front and back, and glued it together. So there's my front piece, and same idea with same exact thing on the back, and there is my back piece. So that is how I created my front and my back cover with this file folder journal. And you can see, I mean, I've got bulk in this thing, and I've got plenty of embellishments, and it's very, very sturdy. Just adding those extra pieces has made this plenty sturdy for a journal. All right. If you've got any questions, please feel free to put them below. I know I didn't do a full-on tutorial and showing you step by step, but I think the beauty of this is you can adjust it to make it work for you. And you know, if you want a wider spine or a narrower spine, but you don't have to limit yourself. By adding this fold over cover, you can increase the depth. Like, you can't see it here because I glued it, but this page probably only comes to right here. But because I layered this sandwich piece on top, it created a sturdy cover that covers the entire bit. Okay, thank you very much for watching. Take care. Oh, buy me a coffee. I've had several people buy me coffees, and we're just at right around $500. On the 28th is when I'll end it. And then on March 1st, I'll do a raffle for all the pieces. And I told you anything over $150, I'd add a piece. So I think I've got several things that I can add, but there will be lots and lots of raffle prizes. And some folks had a concern because there was not a name attached to it, but every person that bought the coffee their email is attached to it. So if your name isn't, if it just says someone bought a coffee, the email is attached to it, and I put the email in for the drawing for the raffle. So everybody has an equal opportunity, and I'm paying for the shipping on that. So Australia, though. If you're an Australia person, I'm going to have to do something, because I just tried to mail Sue something in Australia, and I was told yesterday the packages still aren't going to Australia from the US. So from US to Australia, I can do a flat thing, and maybe I'll do like a flat card thing or something, maybe with a gift card or I don't know, something inside of it. No, that wouldn't work. But anyway, I'll come up with something if you're an Australia person wins. But I cannot mail those to Australia at this point. Just an FYI. All right, now it's long enough. Thank you guys. Take care. Happy creating.